Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins podcast with your host, Ashley Crowder.
Hi, welcome to Connected in 3D, Real-Time Solutions and Digital Twins. I'm Ashley Crowder, co-founder of Ventana. I've been working in the 3D space for way too long and get tons of questions from IT leaders about how to manage IT infrastructure for 3D content and AI. So this podcast is bringing on my friends who are incredible experts in the space to talk about different categories you should be thinking about. And today I am so excited because we have the co-founder of Loci, Eugene Yi. Loci is our AI partner that uses AI to automatically tag 3D assets. So you can easily find them, because if you can't find them, what's the point? So welcome, Eugene.
Thanks for having me, Ashley.
Well, why don't you start? How did you get into this? How did you end up starting the company?
Yeah, well, I, alongside my brilliant co-founder and our CTO, Jack Davis, at heart, we're both believers that we're definitely entered a growth era of 3D spatial computing that's going to change with how we interact with content and experiences. And yeah, in practice, like, we're AI researchers, and that's kind of like the combo of like my co-founder and me at the start of our journey. But kind of the inspiration for the company really came in before I was working at Loci, and I was at Animation Studio, which is a spin out from Pixar, where I saw just a ton of talented creators struggling with repetitive tasks, and just seeing that, especially the 3D side of things, that's not where human potential thrives, just seeing that type of repetitive task motion. So we wanted to take that, the complexity of metadata, like tagging and kind of understanding off their shoulders, so that they could focus on what matters to them, which is how do you build, create, imagine amazing new experiences and content.
That's awesome, right? And with 3D content in particular, it's time consuming to create. It can be expensive. I mean, with spin-offs from Pixar, I can only imagine the incredibly intricate and detailed 3D graphics that were being created. And then to have to sit there and meticulously, basically file it in your digital system. It's a waste of talent and money and resources, right? So you're really helping save a lot of that. So talk a little bit about how your platform works.
Yeah. At the end of the day, at the core, it's an API platform. So we build 3D AI models, like 3D understanding models. And it's quite simple. We intake a 3D file, any kind of 3D file format, and then we output enriched metadata, which includes things like descriptive tags, categories that people want to sort their content by, captions, technical metadata like your poly counts, or just like, does it have rigs, motion, animation, things like this included, color extraction. Like these are the types of things that oftentimes producers, artists are looking for, creators are looking for when they're organizing their assets. And so it's a simple API service that provides
That's
metadata.
Awesome. And when you built this out, so you created your own 3D training models. Like, how much data were you training on? What type of content? Does it work with, CAD manufacturing equipment, the same as gaming assets? Like, how does that part work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Jack and I came from kind of the research community. So are some open data sets with proper Creative Commons licenses that we initially used to train our first models. We're on version 24 of our models at the moment. And since then, we've added a lot more data. We've burned a lot of our venture capital dollars attaining different types of data from like CAD content, from architecture, engineering, construction, to gaming, like art houses, to just kind of things that creators are using. Even Gen AI, we've been able to partner with a couple Gen AI companies with their type of data and photogrammetry data that they've been using. So all of that we have meticulously used some of our money to ground truth it with human labeling, but also with different techniques of 3D understanding. We've been able to build some of the most accurate models out there for tagging.
Wow, that's awesome. And so I know something we talked about too is that some clients have their own custom taxonomy. And from what I understand, you do have the ability to train specific data sets for, an enterprise client that requires, really specific tagging.
Yes. A lot of our customers ask for custom taxonomies or kind of an ontological structure. Basically, those are very fancy words to just say, what are the buckets that you want to sort your assets by? And they differ depending on which industry that we're working with. It can go from like props for gaming assets to like vegetation or even like building materials of like your HVAC system. We see some really interesting ways of how people understand and want to categorize their catalogs, collections, their asset management systems. And what we do is we've been building kind of separate models or fine-tuning our current models to match whatever taxonomy that our clients want. We've been able to do this pretty accurately to above 95% accuracy in many cases.
That's awesome. And a question that comes up, with AI right now, I know California just like knocked down that bill. Everyone's freaking out about my data, and which like is very warranted. I get it. It's just this hard balance of, pushing tech forward and making sure, you have regulation. When you do custom taxonomy for a client, do those models go into your full bucket of training for everyone? Like, how does that part work from like the model ownership or LLM ownership piece?
Yeah, no, we have very stringent requirements on like data integrity as well as like data usage policies where we do not train off of any of our customers' data. And that's our default state in which we operate. Several of our customers, especially in the media and entertainment vertical, are very, very have very stringent security requirements, and oftentimes are building in air-gapped servers and environments like that. And for those customers, we actually, because our models are proprietary and we have full control over it, we're able to send our models directly into their environments and deploy on premises and have them make sure that none of their data actually leaks out. So we have deployments like that where we can basically guarantee no data leakage. And for some of those customers that are, creating really interesting kind of fictional things that need certain types of labels that a regular computer vision model cannot recognize, we do build feedback loops where we can train our models using our customers' data and provide very bespoke models for that.
That's very cool. I can imagine a future where, smaller companies might say, hey, you can use my data to retrain your bigger models, but can I have a discount? I don't know. I think that can get interesting.
Yeah. We wish all the feedback loops were automatic. We don't have that at the moment. So a lot of this bespoke work is done as services.
Got it. Well, that's great for me to know, because a lot of our clients are working on integrating you into Ventana, which makes sense since we're the 3D asset management platform, and the more tagging we have, the easier it is to find assets. But cool. And can you talk a little bit more about how like your approach in automating this 3D metadata differentiates from other methods or other companies out there? Yeah,
for sure. I came from animation and I just really quickly realized like the way that we got started was through a lot of product discovery calls with other 3D creators. Jack and I are both like researchers at heart, but we really wanted to make something people wanted. And so we interviewed architects, CAD content specialists, creative technologists and fashion brands, a lot of different types of people touching 3D file formats. And what we realized very quickly was it's a super complicated world. Everyone has their own like content pipelines. Even in gaming studios, one technical director like might want to use a certain pipeline for one game, and then in the next game, just burn that pipeline and recreate a new type of pipeline. So we just realized like it's a complicated world, and we saw that for us to really fit in nicely, there were kind of three ways that we thought we needed to like go to market. And kind of the first thing was we wanted to make sure that we had modularity. So how do we fit into any stack, any technical stack, and be able to service our users at any point in their life cycle of their content pipeline. And that modularity was really important because people had different needs and different requirements. And we knew that as long as we stuck to what we were really good at, which is building best-in-class 3D AI models, we didn't have to become that platform that kind of forced users to use kind of like tagging or captioning or understanding in a particular way. So we basically used our modularity of the API endpoints to essentially let our users guide us when they needed that type of data enrichment. And kind of thing too for us is like partnerships. We realize like we're great ML people, but we don't quite know how like the product manufacturing world works, and it takes a village to build great solutions. So we have been finding great success in building partnerships, especially like the one with Ventana. And this is probably why we're so excited about working with you, which is any platforms that are trying to centralize assets and have that type of repository, I think our moves towards efficiency and to service that, I think is one way that I think we kind of stand out. We want to be partnering our way instead of doing this.
I was just saying, I 100% agree. I mean, 3D is so complex. If there's any company out there who tells you they can do everything, probably doing it badly, or like there's secret partners behind, right? And I totally agree with the modularity. I mean, at the end of the day, we did the same thing. We're experts in 3D optimization, conversion, and viewing, and we needed a way to easily like upload, search, and find those assets, but built it in a modular way because we get asked all the time, if you're a huge enterprise, you have an existing DAM or PLM system or PIM system. You don't want to get rid of that. That would be a nightmare. You just need to upgrade that. So upgrading that to 3D, upgrading that with AI tagging is huge. Curious in that area, are you working with a lot of PLM systems, DAM, CMS? Like where in the stack are people putting you?
Right now, in their DAM systems is probably the first fit. There's a couple of other places that we've seen, especially with Gen AI clients, but that are different. But I think what has been really interesting is like when we enter a system, like I'm starting to realize like with any type of 3D creator, there is like the technology side, there are bespoke processes and then different types of teams that come together. So that like the people, process, tech, it's like an interesting framework. And oftentimes when I see other AI companies operating in this space, it's really easy to start to like deceive yourself that technology should be the silver bullet to solve like all the inefficiencies. And there's a lot of other types of inefficiencies in like processes and like how teams operate. And so as like good product people know, I think like we have to first understand those processes and users and what they need and really try to meet where they are. So when you ask about DAMs, PIMs, like, PLMs, I think there is just the technology infrastructure side, but what we've been trying to go do is really understand, also the life cycle stage of where the tagging actually can help, and make sure if they're using the DAM in that purpose, we are working and integrating in that way that adds that piece of metadata when they need it the most.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and we're finding ourselves, I mean, we're kind of in the background. A lot of times are getting more and more pulled into the DAM as well, which I find interesting. I think DAM is really expanding in the enterprise to encompass all content. PLM, that product lifecycle management, a lot of our fashion clients integrate 3D into PLM, but even that, at the end of the day, there's so much iteration that goes on, and sometimes they don't want everything in the PLM. And so, it is so important for an organization to just decide on some workflow that's consistent that everyone can follow. Curious, what is some of the advice you have for companies starting to upgrade to 3D, and starting to try and use AI? I mean, what is some advice you have?
Oh, that's such a great question. Usually it's me asking for the advice, actually. Seeing how we can support. But I think what's been fascinating is it's like a topic that like you and I have talked about a lot, but just on like file formats, like the 3D file format world is still bonkers. And I know there's a lot of interesting initiatives and efforts going on to try to put some kind of standardization there. But what we find, especially with some like really interesting gaming studios that are forerunners of their field, a lot of people are also building their own like rendering engines. So there's proprietary 3D file formats that help and only work on their types of rendering engines that are help them building amazing games that are highly performant. And I don't know if I have any advice for them, but I think what I see as an outside observer is that even the definition of what a 3D asset is shifting. Like we think, oh, it's a USD file or it's an OBJ, like, it's GLTF file. But I think, especially with some of these engines, you get like textures, material slapped on in engine, and the actual underlying file is just these meshes. And like, when do you recognize that? When should we add metadata to that type of file? And I think these questions, it's like the field is shifting. And I think as long as we are all speaking to one another, understanding like what actually helps build kind of the optimal workflows that befit that studio or any type of content creation process. I think it's up to platforms like Ventana, and like partner with Loci. I think we have a huge role to play in that interoperability, like the conversion, the compression. How do we like add the metadata at the right time, and really work with the studio in their workflows? So that's maybe a long way to say, I think, again, the flexibility and the modularity of like figuring out the process to take and the people that we're serving, I think is really, really important in kind of this era of 3D when we have a lot of different file formats and workflows.
Don't get me on my soapbox. So we're part of the Kronos group that's pushing for GLTF, the standard file format. I do think there needs to be not just one. OpenUSD is great, and USD is amazing for more complex 3D model creation. But at the end of the day, there needs to be standards. For gaming, for the gaming industry, it's okay, right? Like they are experts in the field. They are building custom game engines that can produce a better game. Okay, that makes sense. If you're a consumer goods company, we need standards because you want to create one 3D model that can be published on your e-com site, on Amazon, on Home Depot, on wherever you're trying to go, and you want that 3D model to look the same on all pages. And the only way to do that is with standardization for rendering and a file format. So, and then from the manufacturing side too, I mean, as long as we can convert, which at Ventana we're huge on, like, it's got to be interoperable. Where whatever you have, we can convert to a low poly GLB, so you can actually share it and use it places. Because it's, we had a client call us and they're like, we have 8,000 3D models. They're scattered around people's desktops and Dropbox, and we don't know where things are, what's what. And it's like, crazy and a huge waste of time and money for like using those assets once when we talk about 3D being the highest level asset. You can use it to automatically create 2D images, automatically create videos. Like you can just generate so much from it. So yeah, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing is magical. I think, especially with our partnership, one of the things that I think provides us with that opportunity is, I don't know if you were a Marie Kondo fan, Ashley, but remember when she like wrote that book? I think it's something called like Tidying Up, or the Magic of Tidying Up. And I went and like threw away half my things after, and then immediately bought them again.
I made a poster video of like Marie Kondo your content, and I feel like nobody got it. I don't know. I've got like dad humor sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I guess like I find some inspiration from her and like the work that we do too, because like my downloads folder or like my shared drive on like my Google Drive is like an absolute mess, and it's just like where I just dump a bunch of things and then have to eventually buy more storage. But if you imagine like the Ventana kind of system to be where we have a shared drive folder, you can dump anything that you want, and then like the Loci AI tech to be we can magically get that into nicely labeled, cleanly sorted, easily filterable files. I think that's kind of the opportunity here. That's like where if you can get that all magically and have that search work properly for being able to retrieve what you need at the right time, I think that's the starting point of efficiency and kind of what like we can imagine what we can build once we have that type of understanding.
It's incredible. I think Forrester did a study earlier this year that on average, employees are wasting 12 hours per week just searching for content, which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also this like Unity report that came out maybe a couple quarters ago that was saying like, I think like up to 40% of the time that developers spend. What was this? It's like, I think it was more than 2 hours per week that 40% of developers were spending on like searching, like resizing, reformatting, organizing, and all these like basic tasks that just should not be draining creators. Creators time.
It's crazy. So love what you all are doing. I personally am a digital hoarder, so I need you with all my content. But AI is advancing so quickly. Where do you see this going in the next 3 to 5 years? What is it going to be able to do next? Like, what should people be on the lookout for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we'd be wanting if we did not talk about like the Gen AI wave of what everyone is trying to go do with 3D creation. And I think once that is cracked, there'll be just kind of a tidal wave of like exponential growth in terms of 3D content that's available. However, I think for us, we've been kind of going the slightly different direction of not like, text to 3D models, but like 3D to text. And we've been obsessed with some of these like very manual processes of what AI might be able to go do. And I don't think Loci technology is something that's going to change like workflows today. But I think what we can do is like help make the processes that creators are going through more efficient today. And we're starting with search. So I think that's like kind of one area that AI can definitely be helping. I think what you can do with great search is great analytics. So if you want better 3D analytics of understanding like the space that you're in, different kind of interactions in the 3D worlds that you're a part of, I think that's what will be unlocked kind of next. And then the other big thing that we see coming in the horizon is protection. Like, how do we make sure that we can encrypt these things properly? There's like 3D watermarking that we can go do. There's like just fundamental like 3D operations for digital rights management. And I think that's going to be the talk of the town as more AI comes to be like, what are your models trained on? Exactly the same question that you asked me at the beginning of this. There's just more on the protection side that I feel like AI can also help with. And so those are like very tangible kind of tactical areas that we want to be investing in as a company to basically get our clients and users ready for this wave.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there is no DRM for 3D right now, really. And you know, some of the Chronos groups and OpenUSD, I think, have that on their roadmap, but it doesn't exist yet. And it's funny because I get RFPs sometimes from big enterprises, like, what's your DRM? And I'm like, the world does not have one, but we're
We'll have one for you next in Q1 of 2025.
But no, and I think what you're doing is so important because it's kind of like we have to first train an AI to understand what we're seeing in 3D. And then I imagine with all of that data, we could then QA the opposite model, right? So I know Meta and Google and everyone is working on automatically creating 3D from text and images. But then once it's created, well, what does Loci say that is? And then feed it back, right? It could be very interesting. And where I love working with the manufacturing industry. I mean, I came from that originally, Northrop and BP, but so many of them are starting with just meshes. And if they could just automate textures, amazing, right? And Meta recently released a paper that explains how you can do that with Llama. And so if it's starting out, I mean, from like the 3D graphics simplicity of, okay, is it steel or is it iron? Like, you know, that's a pretty simple thing to start with, compared to working with our other clients like Michael Kors, where like that material needs to look perfect, you know? So I think we'll see some of that AI 3D automation more in the manufacturing industrial space to start. And I think it'll get people 80%. I think you're still going to need a human to do some work, but I think we'll see it there first just because perfection of the look isn't as important as I just need to understand what this thing is and how it works, right? But yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's right. Actually, I think what's really cool, we've had this conversation offline as well before, but we were also saying like, okay, where are there opportunities where AI and 3D efforts really can like sing together, like kind of work together? And I really loved your framing on this. I've since used it, but it's kind of the physical to digital. There's like, that's like eCommerce where you have a pair of Nike shoes and you want to make that into like an awesome digital version to put on to a website. There's like the manufacturing and AECO space, like the architecture, engineering, construction, and owner space, where you're trying to build digital twins per se. And like, how do you make the digital physical? So you start with like great digital designs of the future cafe that you want, but then you got to make it into a built environment where you buy materials and, you know, deck chairs, whatnot. And then in the media entertainment industry is like the digital to digital, like where we talk a lot about like, you know, this AR, VR, movies, film, VFX, where a lot of gaming, where everything really stays in the digital space. But what I think is really amazing about these multimodal AI models is that we're able to collapse like the 3D space of with the 2D image space and also the text space. And I think as a result, like it's not just the 3D assets that we care about, but if we can match 3D assets with, you know, physical SKUs of real product manufacturing things, I think we're able to really bring these like translate across the digital physical barrier. And I think that's kind of one role that AI will have to play in kind of manifesting that type of like digital to physical transformation, as well as all the immersive digital world enablement stuff that we've been talking about as well.
I think that's completely right. And I'm excited for that. And I think that's where like PLM comes in because it's matching that, like the product lifecycle management through the supply chain and being able to track those assets and understand like what is where and what stage and have that digital visual to pull up to say, oh, okay, this is what's happening in that factory, and I understand. And so there's huge potential there. And I know, we're gaming people. We love talking about like the virtual worlds and amazing stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the fastest adoption we see is when it's that incremental change within an organization, to just, to your point, quickly get rid of some of those mundane tasks nobody likes doing anyways. So from your standpoint, it's tagging. From our standpoint, it's optimization and conversion. And then see what the creators and engineers can do with that free time. Well, thanks so much for joining me. This is amazing. Where can people find more information about what you do?
Yeah, you can go to our website, loci.ai. You spell that LOCI.ai. And just reach out to us over there. And you can see different demos, playgrounds, even grab an API key with a bunch of credits on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Eugene. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. Take care.